At sunrise in 80 AD, the Colosseum was already alive. Its massive arches caught the pale streaks of morning light, while yesterday's blood still clung to the stones like shadows. Vendors shouted over baskets brimming with olives, bread, and watered wine. Beyond the iron gates, half-starved lions, elephants, and panthers waited, restless and snarling. From the tunnels came the sharp clang of swords, not practiced swings, but tests for the day's deadly steel. Thousands of Romans poured in, eager for the spectacle their empire had perfected, death dressed as entertainment. The arena was more than sport. It was a laboratory for cruelty, a stage where power, fear, and human endurance collided. If you were trapped in the Colosseum facing a starving lion, what would you do? Comment below. This was no accident. Rome built an entire system to turn living people into entertainment. And 2 emperors perfected the horror. 37 AD. A 24-year-old named Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus seized the throne. History remembers him as Caligula. Infamous for his cruelty, he used the arena as an extension of his palace. Senators, their wives, and even noblewomen were forced into degrading performances, stripped of dignity for the amusement of the crowd. Blood flowed freely, the line between rule and spectacle vanished. The emperor delighted in fear, humiliation, and control, showing that power could turn human suffering into entertainment. Citizens cheered, their curiosity and bloodlust stoked, while the elite's privilege offered no shield in the sand. Each spectacle was meticulously staged, designed to impress, terrify, and consolidate loyalty simultaneously. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Suetonius, writing in the lives of the 12 Caesars just 80 years later, records the details. Senators who had once voted in the Senate were dragged onto the sand in mismatched armor or with wooden swords. Their families watched from the stands as husbands and fathers bled for the mob. Caligula sat above them all, laughing. The message was brutal. No one, not the rich, not the powerful, was safe. The betrayal cut deep. Men who had supported his rise were now forced to kill or die for his amusement. Human endurance was pushed to the breaking point. Some begged. Some fought with everything they had. All of them lost their humanity in front of 50,000 screaming faces. Caligula's reign lasted only 4 years. In January 41 AD, his own Praetorian Guard cornered him in a palace tunnel and stabbed him 30 times. The monster who turned the arena into a torture chamber died like one of his own victims, screaming, betrayed by the very men sworn to protect him. But the machine did not stop. 64 AD, the Great Fire of Rome. 6 days of flames, half the city destroyed. Emperor Nero needed someone to blame. He chose the Christians, a small, unpopular sect already whispered about in the streets. Nero elevated cruelty to performance art. After the Great Fire of Rome, Christians were blamed and transformed into unwilling actors of martyrdom. Prisoners were thrown to beasts, forced into mythic reenactments, and subjected to public punishment. Women, normally protected by rank, were brought into the spectacle, their suffering implicit, reinforcing imperial dominance. Gladiators fought rigged bouts. Exotic animals were starved to heighten suspense. Nero's arena blurred entertainment, power, and terror into a single, unforgettable experience, leaving both awe and horror in its wake. The historian Tacitus, in his Annals, gives the cold, clinical account. In Nero's own gardens on the Vatican Hill, Christians were sewn inside animal skins and torn apart by starving dogs. Others were nailed to crosses and set alight at dusk, human torches lighting the paths while Nero rode among them dressed as a charioteer. Mothers and daughters died beside their husbands and sons. The air filled with the smell of burning flesh and the sound of screams that the crowd drowned out with cheers. The betrayal was total. These people had committed no crime except their faith. Nero sacrificed them to save his own reputation. The consequences were immediate. The empire learned that any emperor could turn innocent lives into public theater. Fear replaced freedom. The crowd's bloodlust grew stronger with every show. Nero lasted only 4 more years. In 68 AD, the Senate declared him a public enemy. Abandoned, he fled to a villa outside Rome and ordered a slave to help him drive a dagger into his throat. His final words were said to be, "What an artist dies in me." The horror outlived both emperors. In 80 AD, Titus inaugurated the completed Colosseum with 100 straight days of games. Cassius Dio and Suetonius record the scale: 9,000 animals slaughtered in the arena, lions, elephants, bears, crocodiles. Thousands of prisoners and criminals executed in carefully staged deaths. The Hypogeum, the vast underground network of tunnels, cages and lifts, still survives today. Archaeologists have mapped every shaft, every winch, every blood drain channel cut into the stone. Those tunnels once held the terrified humans and half-starved beasts waiting for the wooden platforms to rise them into daylight and certain death. Gladiators clashed on the sand while the crowd roared for more. Condemned men were tied to stakes and ripped apart by big cats. Women and children died alongside the men. The suffering was the point. Horror was entertainment. And Rome kept coming back for more. The Colosseum still stands in Rome today, a tourist landmark bathed in golden light. But beneath the postcards and the guided tours lies the truth. It was never built for glory. It was built as a factory that took living men, women and children, senators, slaves, Christians, mothers, and turned their fear, their pain, their final screams into public entertainment. The emperors are dust. The sand is gone. But the lesson remains, carved into every arch and every stone. When a civilization learns to laugh at agony, it doesn't fall because it grew weak. It falls because it grew entertained. And the crowd is still watching. Music swells, single distant scream fades under the roar of the crowd. End card. All events, names, dates and quotes verified from Suetonius' Lives of the 12 Caesar, Tacitus Nornal, Cassius Dio, History, and Martial Book of Specterlo. Archaeological evidence from the Colosseum Hypogeum excavations. No details invented.